Good afternoon. We are live on Facebook, and this is the final part of the post-congress course of the Italian study group of craniomandibular disorder. We are going to talk about research methods. The outline of this presentation will provide a series of contents, starting with the definition of evidence-based dentistry, the topic of the difficulties with primary researches, the meta-analysis illness, a topic you know I love particularly over the last few years, how to define an author, how to prepare a paper, and how to prepare a lecture to give you some conclusions for the morning when you are going to enter the research arena. So, first of all, what's evidence-based dentistry? The definition of evidence-based dentistry was first provided by Sackett in the 90s. There are few papers, I guess you know them, but the most important issue is that the evidence-based dentistry can be defined as the conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of the best evidence in treating our patients, okay? Everyone seems to forget that evidence is based on the clinical practice. So, first take-home message. Every time you listen to someone talking about my clinical evidence, please turn off your earphone. Cos'è l'evidenza clinica? Non esiste l'evidenza clinica versus l'evidenza scientifica, perché l'evidenza clinica è parte dell'evidenza scientifica. E allora, how to produce evidence when I want to prepare a paper? First, I got an idea, and I have two options, depending on what I want to do. There is a very big misconception now, because we are misinterpreting evidence-based dentistry for browsing the literature. So, on the one hand, we have clinicians saying, I got the clinical evidence. And on the other hand, we have searchers who say that evidence-based dentistry is synonymous of systematic reviews of the literature. But you know what? We got two different options to publish a paper. The first is to perform a bibliographic search, to evaluate articles, to write the article, and that's a complex path. The other alternative option is to design a study, to perform the study, first to receive the ethical approval in many occasions to perform that study, to analyze the results, and then to write the article. Which of the two pathways is more complicated? When I was younger than now, I was used to say, I got one wife, 2 kids at those times, and X systematic reviews, because I was taught that performing a systematic review was such a huge task that it deserved credit for that. Now I'm proud to say that I can write a systematic review on TMJ retrocentesis in one night. In the end, when you write the article, you, of course, revise the text, submit the paper to a journal. Every journal, independent on the quality, has a panel of reviewers who judge your work and send the paper back to you with some suggestions. Sometimes suggestions are put the paper into the basket. It should be rejected, not acceptable for this journal. Some other times, you are allowed to change something and resubmit the paper to the same journal, or you simply use the suggestions to improve the quality of the paper before submitting it to another journal. In the end, sometimes after many revisions, you reach the goal, you score a goal, your paper is accepted. And this is what I think should be a task that deserves to be respected. Reviewers act for free. Personally, I guess it's almost the same for Steven. I receive, I guess, one request to review a paper per day from every journal. Of course, for time reasons, I accept only the most prestigious. Of course, if Peter asks me to do that, I will do. Rafi asks me to do that, I will do for the most prestigious journal in our area. But sometimes you cannot do that. And this is a private confidence. This was a paper of years ago. This is how a reviewer should act. You receive the paper, you have to upload your comments. Sometimes comments are really long, but hopefully constructive. And in the end, you wrote the editor, Caro Sandro, reject the paper. And he rejects the paper. And he asks the authors to revise the paper. And you know the percentage of papers that are rejected from the main journal? From 75 to 90%. Sorry. So top journals rejected up to 90% of the papers they receive. So the two possible strategies to publish a paper: performing an original research or performing a bibliographic search. I got an idea. I want to know something on bruxism and children. I got two options: perform a review or try to organize a study. I choose to perform a review. On August, I took some time, browsed the literature, found 412 citations, and some months ago, exactly 8 months later, 8 months later exactly, the paper has been published. Do you think, is it a long time? Is it a reasonable time? Is it a short time? What about performing a clinical studies on children to get deeper into some topics of bruxism? Should it be longer or shorter in terms of the time that is needed to perform the research? Longer, way longer. November 2014, Alessandro and I got an idea. Why not collecting bruxism data via smartphone? And on March 18, the first paper has been published. So it's 8 months against 3 years and a half. And you're talking about the top researchers. So, when you got an idea, organizing a primary research, which means a clinical research to present original data, is really complex. I always love to say that with Luca, to go from the idea to test the botulinum toxin in myofascial pain, in bruxism with myofascial pain, to go from the idea to the published paper, we got 4 kids into it. I got 2 kids and he got 2 kids also. And then, just months after the second paper, I got a third kid. So, it's way longer than a pregnancy to do a primary research. That's why everyone who puts himself or herself at stakes deserves credit. It is fatiguing, much more fatiguing than saying, Andre, please review the literature. I don't know if it is a Guinness World Record or not, but what I'm saying is that on the one hand, we have the clinicians saying, I have clinical experience that in my hands, this kind of action works. That's a problem, especially in the field of pain medicine with dental occlusion and mandible repositioning theory. That's a huge problem. But on the other hand, how could we answer properly if the presumed top of the iceberg, the meta-analysis of the literature, the systematic review of the literature has become a work for officers? What I'm saying is that we clinical researchers are really facing constant attacks by anecdotal clinicians on the one side, and by, let me call them librarians, on the other side. As researchers, you are facing a problem. There are some so-called evidence-based dentistry centers that are selling you systematic reviews about nothing. They're just there to publish something. And this attitude completely disqualifies the quality and the dignity of research. Research costs, research needs clinical knowledge. In a researcher career, it is quite normal to have some systematic review at the beginning, and then many others in the end of your career. Because first, you summarize the literature written by others to start entering the arena. Then you understand which kind of research you should perform. And then when you are at top of the iceberg, you are requested to join as a co-author or to be part of some editorial processes or panels. So you got another increase in the number of systematic reviews. But the core concept is that without any well-done primary research, there should be no systematic review. And together with the problem of this abuse, we'll come on this topic later in the afternoon. We are also facing problems with the primary research because there are some, let me say, wrong interpretation of what should be done. This is the evidence-based dentistry triangle. So, to perform a research, we should be able to treat the patient, to evaluate the patient, to understand the patient needs, and we should know the know-how of that topic, the behind the scenes. What I'm saying is that I cannot perform research on bruxism and polysomnography in children without meeting Gilles Lavigne, without reading his paper, without even ever assisting to a polysomnography. Not to say to pretend to review the literature on polysomnography. something was happening. So, you are used to see this kind of hierarchy of studies. Voi siete abituati a vedere la cosiddetta piramide dell'evidenza scientifica come se fosse tutto schematizzato e suddiviso a strati, e all'apice, secondo ciò che ci è stato insegnato, dovrebbe sempre esserci una meta-analisi della letteratura o una revisione sistematica della letteratura. Based on a clear-cut distinction between the different types of study. So this way of thinking considers systematic reviews as the main currency value. But actually, it has been years that in the field of true research, systematic reviews are no more considered the currency value. We are using an old currency. We are using the Italian lira, but we got euro since the year 2000. Le revisioni sistematiche, cari miei, non sono più considerate da anni lo standard di riferimento. Quindi svegliamoci quando qualcuno ce le vuole vendere come standard di riferimento. È ovvio, è più facile. Presumi che qualcuno abbia già sintetizzato tutto ciò che è stato scritto. But first, the quality of the primary studies is not necessarily dependent on the type of the study. So there's not a clear-cut distinction between studies. Just to make a very simple example, the Nice Skies report of Leonardo may be of interest because it allows you to open your mouth versus the possibility to intercept some addiction by simply asking patients, what are you doing during wakefulness? On the other hand, if you perform a randomized controlled trial with some pitfalls, the quality of that trial for the potential clinical usefulness will be lower than Leonardo's case report. So, for primary researches, and that could be my take-home messages, my two take-home messages for the young researchers in this room, there are at least two main problems, one in the field of temporomandibular disorders research and the other one in the field of bruxism research. In the field of temporomandibular disorders research, the pitfall is that too many studies did not consider the axis 2. We are keeping on treating, assessing, evaluating, categorizing patients with pain without considering the psychological sphere. And that's absurd, because we've seen yesterday with Peter that the axis 2 for the biopsychosocial evaluation has been introduced in 1992. So it has been 27 years that we know or should know that working only on the evaluation of the joint, evaluation of the muscles, evaluation of the disposition is only a portion of the picture. Because our patients have pain, and pain has, willing it or not as dentists, an impact on everything. Even on your treatment effectiveness. And in the field of bruxism, the main problem is the misuse of the cutoffs to discriminate between who is a bruxer and who is not. So please, don't use those screening criteria to identify bruxers, thinking that they may be useful to find some clinical correlate, because they haven't been published or prepared or suggested to do so. So, the TMD and the burden of pain. Sandro, years ago, wrote a fantastic editorial alerting us against the risk to cripple the biopsychosocial model. If not evaluating pain properly, as for the psychosocial component, we are crippling. To cripple, sapete cosa significa? Azzoppare. Un paziente che ha dolore al volto, al mal di testa, non è un mal di denti. Non è un mal di denti che ha un burden, cioè un onere, un gravare minimo. When you are dealing with chronic pain patients, the burden of pain is much more important than in cases of acute pain. So, my recommendation for you as researchers is that every time you perform a clinical research, instead of focusing on EMG, on technical equipments of any kind, please embed in your evaluation protocol an access to evaluation. You got the GSID V. Avete I diagnostic criteria for temporomandibular disorders. Non perdete tempo a fare l'elettromiografia o l'assiografia o la pedana stabilometrica, che si sa da 20 anni che non correlano col dolore. Do you want to test the effectiveness of your theory or of your treatment? Go with the psychic. The focus has always been, on the contrary, on the physical findings. When we reviewed the literature, we found a lot of papers back in 2011 on physical findings, which means the axis 1 of the old RDC TMD, and very few papers some years ago on the axis 2. That means that the efforts of the pioneers of the biopsychosocial model have been not fully appraised by the young generations of researchers. And the more your patient has a chronic pain, the more the importance of the psychosocial issues. Aesthetically, we are used to deal with acute pain. Our normal patient, Facebook guys, has teeth ache. Even the worst teeth ache doesn't have any psychosocial or severe psychosocial correlate, because almost everyone in the world has sometimes experienced teeth ache, even if during the night they know that in the morning they will ring some doorbells of some dental clinics, and with a short-lasting anesthesia and a short-lasting intervention, the dentist will get the pain out. That's a privilege in the field of medicine. Because in the real world, outside of our dental offices, patients with pain, more often than not, have chronic pain, so they deserve to be evaluated according to the full biopsychosocial model. So, as a reviewer, every time I see a paper without a proper evaluation of the axis 2, my first feeling is I should reject this paper, because it will end up in a soup of papers that will add nothing to the available knowledge. Of course, I know as a clinical researcher that doing so, editors of the journals wouldn't have enough papers to publish. So you always have to find a compromise. as Andre pointed out minutes ago, we now know that even in the field of arthrocentesis, the most powerful predictor of effectiveness is the cycle. So, Borso, I'm sure that if you enter in your evaluation soup the axis 2, you will discover something interesting. Also concerning the effectiveness of arthrocentesis versus the lack of effectiveness. So you can create, for instance, a regression analysis to identify why in some cases the inflammatory markers decreases and why not in patients with pain reduction or without pain reduction, depending on the psychosocial sphere. And this is especially true if you consider that in a population of patients with, I guess that could be Matteo's next study, in a population of patients with normal disposition, no MRI signs of something wrong, but pain in the TMJ, you know what's wrong? The axis 2. In questo lavoro pubblicato su Cranio un paio d'anni fa, in una popolazione di pazienti che avevano dolore all'articolazione temporomandibolare senza reperti organici reali, quindi disco in sede, senza diversamento, è confrontata con una popolazione che invece aveva versamento o comunque segni di artrite, qualcosa, abbiamo riscontrato che la differenza tra i due gruppi fosse la tendenza a somatizzare da parte del primo gruppo. I know it's terrible. I'm a dentist. But first, I'm a clinical researcher and I'm a doctor. And you should know that. So, as clinicians, you should know these issues to treat your patients the best you can. As researchers, you should know these issues to design proper research. In the field of bruxism, the cutoff issue. Last year, we got a closed meeting in Bordeaux to talk about the next strategies to perform bruxism research in terms of measuring electromyography. And I came out with my suggestion. My suggestion was to measure the amount of muscle work, because the current cutoffs are too poorly useful to discriminate individuals with a possible consequence of bruxism and individuals without a possible consequence of bruxism. You have also read our recent paper in the study group, I guess, or in the Facebook. If you take the SB index and split the patients in bruxers versus non-bruxers, there's no differences in pain, tooth wear, and anything else. On general terms, cioè gli indici di cutoff che abbiamo visto prima usare da Rossana, quindi per questo ti dicevo saremmo potuti andare avanti all'infinito. Bruxismo episodi superiori a 4, ma vale anche per le osa, è quello che vi pare a voi, anzi per le osa sono molto più rifiniti, non correlano con i dati clinici, non correlano, sono solo, e si sa, sono solo un tentativo arbitrario in una popolazione particolare che qualche anno fa è stato condotto per cercare di avere dei criteri di screening. Quindi fondamentalmente quello che concludemmo anche nel consensus paper was that the cutoff points for establishing the presence or absence of bruxism should not be used. I cannot say you are a bruxer in terms of possible consequences just because you have more than 4 episodes per hour, and I cannot say you are not a bruxer just because you have less than 4 episodes per hour. The system is much more complex than that, because we have different bruxisms. In Bordeaux, I used the plural, clenching versus grinding. You know, there are papers on the preparation, and of course, my question for you is, how many of these evidence-based centers do you think are really able to perceive these problems? They are keeping on meta-analyzing literature. Yesterday, we have seen a systematic review, just discussed briefly by Gilles. OSA and sleep bruxism. We searched, Gilles was not the author, you know. We browsed the literature. We identified more than 400 citations, and only 2 were included in the final analysis. Okay. Hey, author, you could simply just ask me. I knew those 2 papers. Because I'm an expert. I'm involved in the field. So there's no need that an outsider do this kind of job without any proper capacity to evaluate the literature with the proper know-how. So I always invite you to keep in mind that we are in the research field living an era of abuse of the word evidence-based dentistry as a synonymous of systematic reviews and meta-analysis. We got an illness. Evidence-based dentistry should have been the remedy to a problem. It's become the illness. And believe me, you can see 6 names here, but the list could have been way longer. So, the new pyramid classifies systematic reviews as filters, as lenses that may evaluate the available literature. If the lenses are not properly focused, they may distort the view or misinterpret the finding. So, as students, as young researchers, study, attend congresses, shake hands, dedicate your time and money to meet those ones who are keeping the flame of pure research alive. Otherwise, everything will disappear. We are living a publish or perish era. And I don't like it. Because we got a lot of evidence-based dentistry centers that do that as a work. They sell systematic reviews. And that's absurd. In the field of bruxism and temporomandibular disorders, we got a ratio between systematic reviews and randomized controlled trials that in the field of bruxism approximates 5. It means that we got almost 5 systematic reviews per each randomized clinical trial. That's unbelievable. Of course it's easy to summarize the literature. So, basically, systematic reviews should be evaluated based on the quantity and quality of the literature, but also on the capability of the reviewers to really appraise the methods of research and the knowledge in the topic. Why do you think that Andre has been able to perform such a smart subdivision of groups in the investigations on the TMJ arthrocentesis? You know why? In my opinion, because he's a clinician. He performs arthrocentesis. He knows the literature. He has been attending congresses for years. And if you do that, I think that not even for a single second you have talked about the possibility to meta-analyze those data. So, reviewers' knowledge in the topic should be scientific and should be clinical, not only methodological. Anyone is able to browse the literature in a library. This was the last systematic review I have been accepted. I accepted to be involved in from a group of authors that is not directly connected with my inner circle. Methods are okay. In the end, we came up with some acceptable conclusions, but believe me, check the paper, the clinical value is almost zero. There's nothing new with respect to what we already knew before writing the review. There's nothing new in terms of recommendation to design better our future researches. Because the burden of pain, the cutoff issues, and other behind-the-scenes problems concerning the ongoing bruxism revolution were simply ignored by the main authors. And this is my personal experience. Please, don't move. That's real life. We got an evidence-based dentist group that plans the review, asks an expert to be involved. Hey, Manfredini, I got this review. Would you like to be involved in this project? Yes, no. They perform the literature search, they analyze the finding, they draft the manuscript, and only after drafting the manuscript, they involve the expert. The expert, the other side of the coin, receives a very long text, on average 40 pages. 40 pages of tables, bibliographic search, interpretation, and we are asked to work urgently. Hey, we get this work. Would you like to join us? Please, answer within the next 2 weeks. What does it mean? That you can only provide minimum adjustment. Sometimes you can go back and forth 4 times until they decline the invitation. That was happened to me. And the expert has moral conflicts of interest. Should I prefer to gain an easy publication, because systematic reviews, more or less, will it or not, in the end, will be published somewhere, or since I perceive that they are using my name, I should decline the invitation? I guess you know my answer. Over the last couple of years, I have declined the invitation, but you know that based on this system, the methods of search, bibliographic search, prevail over the clinical and research skills of the authors. So we got a lot of examples of improper use of meta-analysis in the field of bruxism for the youngsters. We got paper in which yes or no bruxism is measured as a risk factor for ceramic failure. So meta-analyzing bruxism in a series of studies based on a yes or no as a risk factor for oratory, without taking into account for the size, for the location, for the differential diagnosis. Again, very old topic of clinical accuracy we are talking about agreement over the last 10 years or so of clinical findings versus MRI to diagnose this dysplasia with reduction. Yes or no, bruxism as a risk factor for yes or no TMD. As considering TMD as a diagnosis. We have seen how complex should be or could be the differential diagnosis in the field of temporomandibular disorders and bruxism. And then, the icing on the cake. We are entering the era of the network meta-analysis. Believe me, what's a network meta-analysis? I had to study because I received an invitation, hey Manfredini, we are willing to perform a network meta-analysis on all the treatments on temporomandibular disorders. On temporomandibular disorders, so you're about to write a Bible. Network meta-analysis are assuming that if you compare treatment A versus treatment B, and I compared treatment B versus treatment C, she can review the literature and says that since you did A versus B and I did B versus C, she says that A versus C is equal to, okay? Network meta-analysis. Browse the meta-analysis. So, literature search is not research. Those evidence-based centers are not research centers. And we should avoid meta-analysis illness. Grazie a Gaetano per questo meme, perché se tutti fossimo a dare ordini a pochi, dice no, guarda, stai cercando nel punto sbagliato, te lo dico io cosa devi fare, giudico io il tuo lavoro ma non mi sporco mai le mani, we will end up without zero progress in medicine. So there should be a proper balance between the number of researchers and the number of searchers. And my wish for the future is that searchers should be researchers that sometimes search for the literature written by others. So, it seems we have some problems with the literature. How to evaluate an author? Because we have just seen that concerning the literature, we should consider that meta-analysis are not necessarily the top of the iceberg, that self-proclaimed evidence-based centers are not the top of the iceberg, and that there are many problems with the primary researchers because there should be a proper evaluation of the access to in pain patients, and there should be a proper knowledge of where bruxism is about to go in the field of bruxism. But what about the authors? Just as a curiosity for the clinician in this audience, there's a sort of a classification of importance. So the golden spot, the most important authors are of course the first, but also the last. The last one, the last authors is the responsible, the sort of supervisor of the project, and the first one is the author who actually coordinated or performed physically the main part of the research. Then there's the silver spot for the second author, the bronze and the less important spot. Of course, I get that some of these authors, I tend to think that they are not really too much involved in that research. how can you have a list of 30 or 40 or 60 authors in original papers? That's why several journals put a limit to the number of authors, unless there is an exception, consensus papers, classifications, and so on. How to evaluate the production of a single author? There's an index. It is called age index. Basically, it is a very raw way to evaluate it. The number of papers which have been cited for that very same number of publications. Which have been cited in the very same number of publications. Which means that an author of an age index of 6 has 6 papers that have been cited 6 times, somewhere. Quindi un autore con un indice H di 6 ha 6 articoli su database internazionali, per l'age index si usa Scopus, che sono stati citati almeno 6 volte in altri articoli, quindi da almeno altri 6 articoli. Quindi si genera per ogni ricercatore un grafico. This is mine, just to avoid commenting on someone else, okay? With the number of publications and the number of citations per each publication, and then there's a sort of a curve determining the age index. But it is also nice to see in Scopus, for the clinical researchers of you, the type of researches. For instance, this is my diagram. I got 72.3% of primary researches. Is it good? Is it fine? Is it bad? I don't know. I guess it is quite acceptable. 7 out of 10 papers in the Medline are original researches. I guess it's a good effort. It could have been 6 or 8, but it cannot be 1 out of 10. So, the most important part for you as young authors of the GSID group, how to prepare a paper, come preparare un articolo, cosa scrivere, come organizzare il mio materiale mentalmente. Some basic rules. You have to learn reading and weighting the literature made by others. That's why I made this long, let me say, introduction about how to interpret meta-analysis and primary researches. You have to know the topic on which you are performing a research and on which you are trying to write an article. Before writing her article, I'm sure Borso has performed dozens or hundreds of arthrocentesis and synovial fluid analysis, because that's part of her know-how that is needed to design the research, to interpret what has been made by the others, to plan a valid study design, and to have in mind where to go, because you already know, since you are a real expert in your topic, what the others have done so far. That's the only way to at least try to present unbiased result. Per gli italiani, questo più che per le pubblicazioni scientifiche vale molto spesso per le relazioni che sentiamo ai congressi, infatti vedremo nella parte finale, fondamentalmente i suggerimenti sono gli stessi. Dobbiamo cercare di essere più onesti possibile nel presentare limiti, pregi, difetti, senza incentrarci troppo su noi abbiamo fatto, io ho fatto così, io questo, io l'altro. Quante volte lo sentiamo? In letteratura meno, perché ovviamente poi c'è il filtro dei reviewers. Then you got to compare your findings with similar studies. And sometimes it could be a problem. Anna did a lot of fatigue to find some comparable findings with your 4-9 bruxism study, because no one else has ever done that before. But that's a strength point of your study, and you should discuss that. And then you have to know the literature, to cite the pertinent literature. And there's an old joke for some lecturer. You should know literature to cite it properly. Literature should be used to make light, not to be as a sort of sidewalk lamp for the drunken man. And we got many lecturers using the literature just to put something on a slide. I got the opportunity to cite my director, my close friend, Marco Ferrari, who is not involved in the field of bruxism and temporomandibular disorder, so I'm freely involved in this kind of expectation. And he always tell me, Daniele, everyone cites my literature wrongly during the conferences concerning, for instance, the fiber posts. Because in the restorative dentistry field, they are engaging battles in terms of which is the most supporting or the amount of tissue that is needed to really support an adhesive restoration. And that could be interesting. For the youngsters, references are your card. Now, with the age, I became more polite, gentle, but until some years ago, when I received a thesis with the name of the author, a comma, a point, the initial in the lowercase, and then the title of the journal, and without the proper order, I got crazy. My students know that. Because this is your reference card. If you are not able to even organize such a very simple task, how can you even imagine to figure out a scientific paper? So, example sentence in a paper. Implants were positioned in these areas which was adequate to sustain masticatory load. That's a typical dental sentence. We do statements. We know everything. As a researcher, if I was correcting an article like that, I got some simple questions. Who showed their citizen? Why? Are there any studies using a different number of pillars? If yes, why the literature is not consistent on the topic? Ask questions. How many questions Peter and Gilles have raised over the past 2 days. This is a very nice publication. I invite you to read it. That could be another topic for the journal club, Leonardo. Take this one. You know this one? Don't tell me yes, because I know the answer is no. A guide for preparing a patient-oriented manuscript. Browse the Medline and download it. The title should be concise and explicative. The introduction must grasp reader's attention. No one wants to read the Ancient Testament in your introduction. You just need 3 paragraphs. 4. Because the reader wants to know what you are doing and why. Materials and methods should be necessarily long to provide as many details as possible, and for research purposes to ease the reproducibility of the study. Results should be split into text and tables, and what is written in the text should be possibly not replicated in the tables. That's an elegant solution. The discussion. For many of you, it is the more complex session. Almost like the introduction. Because it should be a sort of framework containing your results within the full spectrum of what's already known on the topic. And then the conclusion. The entire manuscripts should be what I suggest to you guys, 3,500 words. No more. No more. Every time I review a 40-page manuscript, my first comment is too long. Too long. At the expert level, you must go to the point, because anyone who is reading already knows something. Per gli italiani, vale anche per le riviste divulgative. Titolo conciso ed esplicativo. Introduzione deve cogliere la vostra attenzione. Voi dovete avere, tra poco lo vedremo, una serie semplicissima di paragrafi, 3, 4, che devono spiegarvi perché avete fatto lo studio e cosa intendete trovare. I materiali e i metodi e la parte critica, perché deve essere spiegato nei dettagli cosa è stato fatto, giustificandolo in maniera razionale, ma anche e soprattutto per rendere fruibile a tutti la possibilità di duplicare quel disegno di studio. Poi ci sono i risultati che devono seguire in perfetto ordine la sequenza di ipotesi che voi avete presentato nei materiali e metodi, la discussione che deve un pochino riprendere il concetto generale dello studio e diciamo incastonare i vostri risultati nel contesto di ciò che hanno fatto gli altri prima di voi, e deve, per mia, come dire, esperienza e suggerimento, essere non tanto più lunga dei materiali e metodi. Neanche una discussione di 5 pagine va bene. E poi le conclusioni, i key findings, i risultati chiave, una frase, 2, 3 se proprio quel giorno volete dirmi: Daniele, per favore, 3 frasi. Ok? Just an example paper. You like this title? I guess it's quite clear. Is it concise? It goes to the point. It summarizes everything. If you find concrete results, There are no need to be diplomatic. There's no need. They say assessment of body posture in patients with this displacement versus blah blah blah. No, there's no difference. So if everyone doesn't have time or willingness to read the full paper, the title is enough. Introduction. 3 or 4 paragraphs. The background of the study, the reasons, and the aim. Based on the premise you wrote earlier, the aim of this study was to assess postural features of pain-free subjects with internal derangement of the TMJ and to compare them with subjects with normal disposition. Go to the point. Materials and methods, the study design. Why did you choose a sample size of, I don't remember, 2 groups of 21 subjects? Because there was a prior sample size analysis. Which variable did you assess? Oh, quite a bit, 24 postural variables. And many are posturometric variables. You should add pictures, depending on the editorial guidelines. You should present the statistical analysis that you are going to perform to test your hypothesis of existence of a difference between patients with these displacements and patients without this displacement. And then you should discuss the statistical significance in terms of p-value. What's the p-value? The p-value is a probability number. It is the probability then that your groups show differences in some parameters that are not due to chance. La P, il valore di P in statistica medica che si trova negli articoli eccetera, è il valore di probabilità che la differenza che io trovo tra 2 gruppi di persone, perché una differenza la trovo sempre, altezza media di 100 uomini presi per strada e 100 uomini dietro questa stanza, non può essere perfettamente identica, trovo una differenza. Che probabilità c'è che questa differenza non sia dovuta al caso? Ok? Se prendo 100 cinesi in una stanza e 100 svedesi nell'altra, non è dovuta al caso, troverò una differenza che poi dopo dovrò andare a spiegare col fatto che, caspita, mi sono accorto che c'erano 100 cinesi e di là 100 svedesi. Ok? Quindi questo è un semplicissimo concetto di statistica, la P non è un numero astratto, poi ci sono 1000 aspetti più complessi per tarare il valore di P e per non esagerare con la numerosità campionale. The p-value also reflects the sample size, Laura. So that could be a problem when you have even too many patients in your study, because you find, or you risk to find, significant differences for very small differences that are not relevant clinically. But that's another story. That's for the advanced course. Okay. The results. Is this sentence clear enough? There are no significant differences between the 2 groups in any of the body posture segment outcome parameters. Simone, do you need for any study, any other studies on this topic? Do you need to perform further studies on this topic after this kind of results? I guess the answer is no. Or at least you should know that this is the literature. This is what is known. This is what has been done by the others. So, all your results should be compared with these ones. And why, in this specific paper, did we take a symptomatic patient with just this displacement? Because we wanted to avoid any possible influence of pain. Noi volevamo che non ci fosse l'influenza del dolore sui parametri posturali. Se l'ATM ha una qualsivoglia influenza, deve averla nel paziente asintomatico a cui l'ATM funziona cinematicamente differentemente perché ha un click rispetto al paziente che non ha un click. Results should be detailed and should follow the flow of the methods. Andre, even in his systematic review, should describe in the methods that the studies will be classified or split or divided based on the type of disease they were addressing for or on the type of population. And then in the results section, you should follow exactly that kind of subdivision. Graphs, p-values, and blah, blah, blah. Posturometry, posturography, the discussion. Again, 4 or 5 paragraphs, or 4 or 5 subtopics, 4 o 5 sottoargomenti. Non facciamo un minestrone. Il background. Why did I perform the study? The findings. What did I find? The comparison. What did you find with the very same study or some similar study? Which were the limits of my research? And which can be the suggestions for future researches on the topic? This kind of very simple template is the basic for writing a fruitful discussion. Of course, to write that you should have a reasonable background, you should have designed a proper study, you should know the literature written by others, and you should be honest enough, and you can do that only if you know the literature written by others, to recognize your limits and the pitfalls and the shortcomings of your research. And the final suggestion cannot be there's a need for further research. It seems a baby boy thing at the primary school, and everyone lived happy. E tutti vissero felici e contenti. C'è bisogno di ulteriori ricerche, ok? Benissimo. Se tu sai l'argomento e l'hai studiato, mi dici anche quale. Easy conclusions. Sorry, this is correctable in just a minor effort. In conclusion, there were no significant differences in body posture between patients with subjects, not patients, because they don't have pain, they're subjects. Sorry, with and without unilateral disc displacement with reduction. Go to the point, single sentence. You want to get more? Some nights ago, together with some friends, we wrote a brief pamphlet, a brief book for Springer in statistics to get deeper into the statistical approaches to the orofacial pain and TMD research. Leonardo, you got that book. Is it nice? Don't say yes. Very nice, okay. It's more than yes. Okay, thank you. Okay. Basically, we took several papers and we commented the way we organized methods, the statistics, everything. So, as a closing remark, for instance, this specific topic, when gurus say that there is absence of evidence on that particular topic, please remember that there is evidence of absence. It's not the same. Words are meshed. And when I say that devices can be used to record ancillary secondary data, please remember that they should justify the need to waste time, money, possible biological invasiveness that are for using instruments that are not related with patient complaints. If my patient come to my office because of a disc displacement or a click, because they don't know to have a disc displacement, they come to my office because of a click. They just ask me an explanation for the click. They don't need to be put on a bikini on a postural platform. They just have a click. So, how to prepare a lecture? How many of you have appreciated the sharp communications? Why? Because the level of the presentations in terms of flow or contents was extraordinary. I was the happiest man on the world, on the face of the world. Because they follow exactly the most logical template. Everyone presented data honestly. No one came here to say, hey, I'm good. I want your applause, and you will never be able to do what I'm doing. A lecture should have the same format than an article. So, how to evaluate a lecturer? As for the articles, first, this speaker is talking a lot. Questo relatore sta parlando di un sacco di cose, ma quello che dice è supportato da qualche ricerca sua? Has he or she ever conducted some researches on those topics personally? If yes, is he or she just showing cases? Sometimes I got to take 3 or 4 coffees per morning listening to ortho or prosto congresses. When I receive an invitation, I finish my lecture, and then I get there, and sometimes, don't be, let me say, annoyed by what I'm saying, but sometimes you listen to a list of colleagues going to the podium and saying, oh, in this case I do that, in this case I did so, in this another case I performed so. I is the individual, is the first person. With the first person, we never go anywhere. Is the event sponsored? Oh, very often it's sponsored. Is the information, and that's your duty, is the information in line with what is expressed by the other leading personalities, by the international academies? Sto ascoltando qualcuno che mi sembra interessante e mi sta dicendo che lui lima i denti in un certo modo. Ok, ma l'Accademia Italiana di Odontoiatria Protesica, nelle sue pilloline che ogni tanto mette, cosa dice? Sto ascoltando qualcuno che mi dice che i disturbi del sonno lui li valuta così. Ok, benissimo, ma la Società Italiana di Medicina del Sonno Odontoiatrico cosa mi raccomanda? Questo è un nostro dovere, lo dobbiamo a noi stessi e ai nostri pazienti. And so on, okay? So, there's a lot of misinformation, and you should be honest to present your own credits, but also your own limits. You should go to the introduction of the topic. You should, when you are performing or presenting a case, you should discuss the anamnesis of the patient or the assessment of the patient based on international guidelines. Remember what I was saying in my main lecture concerning the Costin syndrome. If I were here speaking about the Manfredini appliance, it's time for tomatoes. Because there is a general acceptance of some classification systems, of some authorities, of some guidelines, and that's what you should do. How many of the young researchers perform their studies based on the DCTME? All of them. So you should use the appropriate terms, choose the pertinent bibliographic references, you should take care of the pictures, and you should send a message. Of course, pictures should be professional, not unprofessional. And then define your target. I consider myself slightly presumptuously a teacher. And I don't want here at the study group to invite showmen or people, as sometimes it happens, to listen to, oh, I don't have enough time to say, okay, time is a factor, but it is for everyone. We have been given 30 minutes to speak in, to an attendance of orthodontists. You have been given a topic, use those 30 minutes at your best. Don't go on the podium and saying, oh, I should have hundreds of cases, but I can present only 10 because I have only 30 minutes. That's very disturbing. And then you speak 45 minutes. That's very disturbing. It is not acceptable at the high level. And when you see a lecturer like that, you immediately should perceive him or her as a showman. He or she is there for himself, not for you. I'm not sure this is good for Facebook. So, remember, and I'm trying to moderate myself. So, remember that you should try to make the reader's test to follow your lecture easier by providing an index of contents. Ci vuole un indice. Ci vuole un indice. Se io prendo un'enciclopedia, non posso sfogliarla tutta prima di capire che Roma è stata fondata da Romolo e Remo. No, ho bisogno di un indice che mi dirà in quale pagina si parla della fondazione di Roma. Voi siete solo un relatore, non siete il relatore. You're just a lecturer, not the most important man in the world. another thing that, believe me, sometimes I have heard too. Oh, there should have been some literature, but it costs. Are you kidding me? You got a Maserati out there, and you don't have 30 euros to read the paper? Or to subscribe to a journal? This is better to keep it in English. Keep in mind what have you learned from other lecturers, what they say. And then another issue. Every time you will be invited, you will be given a topic. Hey, Andre, please come here and speak about TMJ ultracentesis. Oh, okay. So, embryologically, the TMJ, blah, 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 blah. So, no. It's not your topic. And how many lecturers come almost at the end of their time slot, still in the introduction of what they are willing to say. And this is typical of newcomers, inexperienced, or self-centered lecturers. So simply, don't do that. You will have, if you're good, you will have so many occasions to show the world how good you are, that you don't need to give everything in one single occasion. And then there's another rule. Of course, if you are really good, you don't need to do that. There's another rule. How much time have you been exceeding? 30 minutes? Okay, you need 30 slides. Are you a little shy? You want to go by memory because it is one of the very first times you exhibit in public? Okay, prepare 50. Are you experienced enough to grasp the attention? Okay, no slide. Let's talk about TMD. But you cannot prepare 200 slides for 30 minutes. It should be fireworks. So, coming to an end, I guess this spirit of the step formation has really permeated this Congress, and his willingness to share, to teach, and to grow up together will be, let me say, with you for the next year until we meet again on June the 5th, 2020. And going to the conclusion, of course, it should be wonderful to live in a perfect evidence-based dentistry world. But that vision is biased, because the only way you can really help your patient and prepare good papers and perform good researches and evaluate honestly the works made by others is to use your brain. There's no dichotomy between literature and clinical evidence if the literature is good. So before criticizing or before entering the arena, you should know the limits of evidence-based dentistry. You should understand how to read the literature, and if you understand how to read and how to perform the literature, you can easily find it in the everyday life. L'evidence-based dentistry ha dei limiti che tutti conosciamo, quindi non fatevi fuorviare da chi vi dice che in letteratura vale tutto e il contrario di tutto, perché è una frase che non ha senso. Bisogna porsi delle domande ben specifiche e bisogna capire anche come leggere la letteratura o, nel caso vostro, come cercare di produrla, e la troverete facilmente nella vita di tutti i giorni. È chiaro? Is it clear enough now that primary researches and systematic reviews should be built on clinically valid constructs? Without any solid clinical hypothesis, there's no usefulness in publishing papers. So, for the youngsters, studying is always an opportunity. Enjoy it. And thanks for coming again. Bye bye, Facebook guys. See you next time.